Alright, go.
Hi, I'm Max Grossfeld.
I'm Alvaro Rodriguez.
I'm here, Miss Harley.
And this is our presentation on masculinity. So, what is masculinity? In order to understand masculinity, we have to first understand what is not masculine. And obviously, he is not masculine. But beyond that, masculinity can be extremely regional. You have some common characteristics throughout a bunch of regions, such as being brave, strong, bold, fearless, true to values. And these are all things that we see in people we consider manly men. Another thing that masculinity defines is when men have to take action, men take action. Take, for example, sporting events. In the fourth quarter of a football game, you want your most masculine men on the field to dominate and take over and really control the football game, and that would be masculine. Also, we would consider chivalry to be part of masculinity. You want someone who is going to treat ladies with respect, treat them well, hold open doors, do all these different sorts of things. And all of that would be our definition of masculinity.
Masculinity in the U.S. versus Latin America. The U.S. was a colony of Great Britain. The colonists were tired of being controlled by the British, so they fought them and won. Through their independence, the U.S. gained their masculinity. The term founding father even shows the great masculinity demonstrated by the founders of the U.S. who fought the British.
It's alright, keep going. Alright.
Stable government and freedom of the U.S. citizens has maintained the masculinity of the nation. Much of the Latin American nations, however, lack masculinity. Latin America's nations, since their independence, have faced severe poverty, high unemployment, strong political corruption, and poor educational standards. All of those factors ultimately deprive the nations and sometimes its people of the masculinity. An example is the Dominican Republic. I'm going to talk about two nations we talked about in class, the Dominican Republic and Haiti. And I'm also going to mention Nicaragua. The Dominican Republic suffered strong political instability. After Trujillo rose to power, the nation was doomed. People were denied of any rights. They couldn't say anything about the government. They couldn't stand up for themselves. Trujillo was their dictator. Men were deprived of their masculinity, and any demonstration of a man's masculinity was a threat to Trujillo. Haiti, after gaining their independence from France, were unable to maintain a steady government to help the nation rise and gain its masculinity. It is the poorest country in the Americas. It has no power and has to rely on foreign aid. It has suffered from political corruption from its leaders. The Tonton Macoute destroyed the country in the 60s and 70s. They killed and humiliated many men and families. I am from Nicaragua, and it's a beautiful country, however. It struggles with poverty rates, low education, high unemployment, and political corruption. Many families make barely any money to support themselves. It makes men seem less masculine when they can't support their own families, when they don't have a job that can make the income for their family. President Daniel Ortega has been in power for 3 terms, and the people question his being in office, and mostly due to possible rigged elections. That's it. All 3 of these countries have a common factor. They each suffered from political instability. We can see that in the Dominican Republic, Dominicans were deprived of their masculinity. Anyone who's tried to speak up, they were killed. They were viewed as a threat to Trujillo. In Haiti, the Tonton Macoute, they went around and killed whoever was also thought as a threat to the government. Anyone that criticized the government was killed. anyone who had different views was killed. In Nicaragua, while it might not be so drastic, many people still suffer from the effects of the political corruption. There's no help for the poor, so they remain poor, and they remain jobless, and without jobs they can't support their families, ultimately losing masculinity. All three of these countries lack masculinity, mostly due to their political instability.
Alright, I have some anecdotal evidence of what I consider masculinity to be. For me, masculinity has a lot to do with being big, strong, physical, while also being chivalrous. For example, my personal hero would be, or my personal example for masculinity would be someone like Ray Lewis. He's the middle linebacker for the Baltimore Ravens, if you don't know. So obviously I'm a Ravens fan. But he is the best linebacker in the whole NFL because he's big, he's fast, he's strong, and not only that, he's intimidating. He knows how to talk, he knows how to let his game talk. Another masculine theme would be to be fatherly. When we were little, we all looked up to our fathers as men. They were who we thought. Well, I apologize if you didn't have a good father, but for all of us who had good fathers, we looked up to them as the person we saw to be the manliest man in the world. Lastly, but certainly not least, would be chivalry. A very important thing for masculinity would be to treat women with respect, to do everything I said before, to hold open doors, to be nice, to be kind, to listen. All of that would be masculine, because it would be protection of women.
Okay, here we have examples of masculine men, and that's the most interesting men. We have Teddy Roosevelt, we have a football star, we have Chuck Norris, and we have the Old Spice dude. But these are their characteristics symbolize what masculine men are. Like Teddy Roosevelt is a leader who commands subordinates, who uses his words, and he's shown respect. Like the most interesting man is not fearful. He's fearless. He can take on any challenges, and the football dude is intimidating. You can see his strength. Like the most masculine man's like Chuck Norris. He's a fighter. You can see he's not in his eyes. He's strong. He's masculine, just like the Old Spice dude. They can command strength, and they're intimidating, and they're also masculine. Okay, these are the texts we're gonna look through how the theme masculinity is used in these three texts. We have Hemingway's The Short Happy Life of Francis Macomber, and Alvarez in Times of the Butterflies, and the movie Corber Woman. We're gonna see how the theme masculinity is shown and presented in these texts and the movie. We're gonna start with Hemingway, The Short Happy Life of Francis Macomber. Francis Macomber, we're going to see how the whole masculinity, the theme masculinity, is shown in the text, and how Macomber is masculine and how Wilson is masculine, and how their masculinity is compared, and how Margaret is the one who's supporting or not approving their masculinity. Macomber versus Wilson. These are two men. They're the two main characters in the story. There's Macomber and there's Wilson. Wilson is the hunter who's rugged character, who has rugged characteristics. He has a face of a man. His boots are dirty. But when we look at Macomber, he has a face of a boy. He's well put. He has clean clothes. This is their characteristics right after they came back from hunting a lion. The one Wilson shows that he has done some work. He's not afraid of the lion. He has faced the lion. His characteristics, his face, his clothing shows his masculinity. And his wife, Macumber's wife, looks at Macumber not as masculine. She doesn't approve of his unmasculinity. He's not what she wants him to be like. But on the other hand, Wilson is the one who she looks at. She still looks at Wilson while her husband was sitting right next to her. This shows how on their car ride, when they left to hunt the lion and when they came back, there was a significant difference. When they left to hunt the lion, Macumber was sitting in the front and Wilson was sitting with Macumber's wife in the back. But when they came back, Wilson is now sitting in the front and Macumber is sitting in the back with his wife. So, and that shows that one of them are masculine and the other is not. Macumber's wife steals a kiss with Wilson while Macumber is sitting right next to her. So she's supportive of what Wilson has done as being masculine and not fearless in front of danger. Because Macumber ran back. When he see the lion, he ran back like a girl, so he didn't face it. And that's their difference, I guess. In the story, Macumber becomes masculine when he actually goes out, wants to fight the buffalo, and finishes off the buffalo. But in that moment, he becomes masculine. He is not he's not afraid of danger. The reason could be the fact that his wife cheated on him the night before, and he's motivated to show that he's masculine and to show that he's not just any man that can just be used like she's using him just for his money. So at the end, but the problem was he become masculine, but his wife still didn't believe in his masculinity. She did not believe that he's going to finish the buffalo. He's standing right in front of the buffalo and shooting at the buffalo, but his wife, who is sitting in the car, there's a significance in there's a thing that she used. The gun is called a manleacher, just like the way who she is. She kills him off with a manleacher, and that's what his masculinity is short-lived, which is signified in the story.
I will now be talking about masculinity in Julia Alvarez's In the Time of the Butterflies. The most masculine man in the book seemed to have been Trujillo. He was the most masculine man in the country. He got all the girls he wanted. He had the power. He could kill anyone he wanted to. He did anything he wanted, and everybody was scared of him. One of the characters, Leo, presented himself as a rebellious figure. He tried to stand up for what he believed in, to try to bring back peace to his country, but was ultimately wanted by the government for treason. He was considered a public enemy of the state. Leo tried to show off his masculinity, but in a dictatorship he could not do that. He was a threat to Trujillo and had to flee the country because of it. And in the Time of the Butterflies, the story revolves around three sisters who fought for what they believed their country should be, and eventually sacrificed their lives for this belief. They wanted a free Dominican Republic, where people could speak and stand up for themselves. This was not what it was like in the time of Trujillo's regime. Because every man that tried to stand up to Trujillo was killed, eventually no man wanted to stand up and take the role of masculinity to save their country. This role was then eventually transferred to women, and it was the mariposas that were the ones who took on the masculine responsibility to try and rescue their country and salvage it to make it become what it is today. The fact that it was women who became heroes of the Dominican Republic depicts how men became powerless in a dictatorship of Trujillo. Men who were thought to pose a threat to the regime were immediately killed or imprisoned. It was the woman who had to step up to save the Dominican Republic. The three sisters, especially Minerva, showed strong leadership qualities, and were aggressive and were determined to fight for what they believed in. They were strong leaders. They were brave and fearless and risked their lives. And they knew that they were risking their lives and eventually died for their country.
Alright, well, I'm going to be introducing Cobra Woman and show you both how Cato and how Ramu both show masculinity. I believe that both Cato and Ramu show masculinity because they both risk their lives to try to save Talia. Both are brave, outgoing, and fearless, but there are slight differences in their masculinity. So even though they are similar, there were slight differences. Cato's motivation behind going to save Talia was mostly that because he was loyal. He assumed sort of an underling role, and in his imitation of Ramu, showed masculinity. Ramu, however, was attractive, brave, strong, and built. He was everything that a white hero in the 1950s, sort of in the vein of Superman, would show in masculinity. Ultimately, it was due to both Cato and Ramu's masculinity, as well as a little help from a funny monkey that ends up saving Talia. The role that they take in showing their masculinity mainly is they're taking on a guardian role of Talia. She gets kidnapped, they have to go save her. This guardian role is ultimately what both Cato and Ramu show that makes them masculine.
Our America. The author Jose Marti is the way he lived his life and his life story kind of shows why he would be writing such an article. He has a Spanish family, he's born in Cuba, and he wants to free Cuba, and he always wanted to have a free country that's led by its own people. So his article at the beginning shows why men shouldn't just be selfish and for themselves. They have to live in the country that they protect, and in the country they want to live, and the country they feel they belong to. So men, he describes characteristics that should be to a man. He compares and contrasts what good men do and what not so good men do. So he shows good characters of masculinity that could be helpful for a country, and hence the country of America. And the men are the protectors, and the land is shown as the woman.
In America, the good ruler does not need to know how the German or the Frenchman is governed, but what elements his own country is composed of, and how he can marshal them so as to reach, by means and institutions born from the country itself, the desirable state in which every man knows himself and is active, and all men enjoy the abundance that nature, for the good of all, has bestowed on the country they make fruitful by their labor and defend with their lives. Alright, that is essentially what Marti is trying to say throughout his whole rambling article. He essentially wants Latin America to come forward with their own ideas, their own thoughts, their own reasons. He wants Latin America to develop their own system of government that specifically fits and is appropriate for Latin America. But mostly, he wants Latin America to move away from Europe. They got their independence. He thinks they should take their own ideals and create that into a system that works. And finally, and probably mostly importantly, he wants Latin America to be proud of themselves. He wants them to be willing to fight and die for their land.
I'm going to read an excerpt that deals with masculinity. Only runts whose growth was stunted will lack the necessary valor, for those who have no faith in their land are like men born prematurely. Having no valor themselves, they deny that other men do. Their puny arms, with bracelets and painted nails, the arms of Madrid or of Paris, cannot manage the lofty tree, and so they say that the tree cannot be climbed. Jose Marti describes masculinity as having valor, boldness or determination in facing great danger, especially in battle. This valor provides a guideline to national masculinity. Pride in self, pride in the country, It calls for men to defend their country and to stand up for what their country believes in and for what their country wants. The country is referred as she, so the country is given a feminine nature, which shows that the man, the valor man, is to protect the country, the woman. Jose Marti's Our America directly relates to the three texts we've been covering. In Cobra Woman, Ramu stands up for his marriage, which is just like how Jose Marti wants men to stand up for their nation. Ramu wants to make sure that he gets what he wanted, that he gets his wife, and saves his marriage. Just like how Jose Marti wants men to stand up for their country and have the pride and independence that they deserve. Jose Marti also describes masculinity in a nation being prideful in one's nation, and we can see this in Julia Alvarez's In the Time of the Butterflies. The Mariposas were tired of being the Europeanized white people that Trujillo was imposing them as. They wanted a free, truly Dominican country. And they were trying to stand up for what they believed the Dominican Republic was. Not what Trujillo was making it seem like. And not what Trujillo was making them do. The article also shows how masculinity is demonstrated through confidence. In Francis Macomber, we can see that he lacks confidence. This is seen in the lion scene where he does not want to go back to the lion and attend to it, where Wilson ultimately is the one that steps up, has the masculinity to go and bring back the lion. However, Macomber does stand up and take on this masculine role, which he ultimately dies. But it was due to his confidence that he could kill the buffalo, that he attempted to kill the buffalo.
Okay, well, literature in the Americas literally would be anything written by an American author about the Americas or about Americans, but really it's extremely different based on what regions you're in. Different cultures have extremely different perspectives, so in order to look at American literature, you have to really step back and take a look at the culture to appreciate what is being written. Different nations and characters prove their masculinity in different ways. Macomber had to step up, get confidence, and face the lion. Cato and Ramu both had to go save Talia, so we can consider that American masculinity because it was made for, or United States, I should say, masculinity, because it was made for a United States audience. In the Time of the Butterflies, the Dominican masculinity was shown by Trujillo and his sleeping with every beautiful woman, and also by the Mariposas stepping up and opposing them. Even though they were women, they showed masculine tendencies by opposing the authority. And you can see how the differences between the Dominican and American masculinity are shown. Even though they're subtle, they are different. So when you look at literature of the Americas as a whole, you have to understand where the author is coming from in order to really understand the whole literature. A lot of times, literature of the Americas is based around nations or characters focusing or proving their own masculinity.
Question time. We don't think we're going to let you off that easy. Okay, we have a question that shows who is the most masculine man or woman in all the texts we have read and why. How does this character show or her really, how does this character show his or her masculinity? Okay, you need to think about how the previously stated characteristics of masculinity apply to the text and to this person, so you should be able to choose who is really masculine.
Trio!